I'm Paul,
I'm John.
and we've just been on a holiday to Berlin. And when we come back from a mini break, we like to reflect on what we liked about the holiday. And we're going to, during this video, talk about the places we ate at and also the things you can do in Berlin and what the weather was like at this time of year and how much value for money we thought Berlin was and whether we would repeat it. So if you'd like to see the whole Berlin series, John is going to put a link in below. So if you look down below, there should be a link to both the days.
And also a hotel tour as well.
And the hotel tour, yeah. So we just wanted to try everything really that was for offer.
Yeah.
On offer.
But we actually ended up having probably different things to what we thought. So we had a mixture of food. There's lots of places to eat there. In terms of cost, it's about the same as the UK at this time of year. So when you went for coffees and cake, it usually costs between 10 and 14 euros. So pretty similar to the UK. When we had more convenient food, that tended to be a little bit cheaper. So we had some fries with some sauce, so like poutine in Canada. That was really nice. We also had some pork knuckle, which was very traditional, a bit much for me. It looked quite gross if you watch the video. I think it's in the first video. But yeah, it was very big, the meal. So it's probably better value for money. What else did we have?
We had a Thai, so we went to a Thai restaurant and we really enjoyed that. It was just so nice to get some vegetables because everything we've been eating had hardly any vegetables.
Yeah.
I think we had sauerkraut with the pork knuckle and it also had like some mashed potato that had some vegetable in it, but it tasted like instant vegetable.
Yeah, like Idaho mash.
Yeah, but I really liked the pork knuckle, but it was a lot of work involved because there was a big layer of fat all over it and you had to cut away the fat to get to the meat underneath. If you're a bit squeamish, it was like not really like just ready to eat. It was quite challenging, I suppose, in a way, but it was quite a touristy pub as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like we didn't really find like round our hotel pubs or like places that seemed very. It sounds a bit authentic. They seemed quite like touristy, didn't they?
It tended to be Bavarian.
But there's this. And if you want a bit of proper Berlin food, I'm sure there are places.
Yeah.
That you might have to go a bit further than where our hotel was.
Yeah, and we picked up like quite a few snacks as we were walking around. We didn't necessarily go and eat meals, like set meals every time we wanted to eat. So we picked up things sometimes from the supermarket, which was quite good, the bakery. I thought breakfast was a bit of a challenge because of the time we have to get up for work. We were quite used to getting up quite early and some of the attractions were quite early in the morning. And so to get breakfast was difficult. It was mainly things like croissants and sweet cakes and things rather than something more substantial, so that was probably a little bit tricky. The ones that did proper breakfast things tended to open around 9 o'clock, but that's not that different from where we live now. But and you could always get things like KFC and McDonald's and things like that and Burger King, but we didn't really want to go to those when we were in Berlin.
Yeah, also like the hotel did breakfast as well. How much was it? Can you remember?
Yeah, 28 euros each. So we didn't have that because we don't really like eating loads for breakfast, and you kind of feel you have to if you spent 28 euros on breakfast.
We did find on the last day, we found a bakery like place quite close to the hotel on the last morning that did breakfast, which would have been from quite early, and it included eggs and things. It's just the way it was. It's like we just didn't know it was there, but it was on the last day, wasn't it? And we were like, oh, we know. I
think because we walked past loads of bakeries, we kind of give them all the same kind of. We always thought they're the same, so it was
basic.
Yeah, it's kind of tarnished with the same brush, but actually this one was really nice.
You had your best cake from there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and now I want it again, and I can't get it, so I have to go back to Berlin.
We're talking about what things you can do in Berlin, and because we were there for 4 days, 3 nights, we didn't get to do everything. We got to do everything we planned to do. And we were very realistic about what we planned. a few years ago we went to New York, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we did so much, it just really shattered us. So we were just basically, we made sure that we didn't overdo it. We went to a few museums. We went to the Disgusting Food Museum, which was really just a big room with loads of disgusting food in it. It was the most expensive of all our museums we went to. It was quite expensive, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll put a link to the video. It's in the second video from the series, so you can see what it roughly looked like.
And we didn't feel like it was amazing good value, but we enjoyed it. But we were really tired by that stage, and I think that's the thing to remember of city breaks is that you get quite tired, and thinking about things to do, like don't try and give yourself some time off as well. So we went to Brandenburg Gate, which was obviously you have to go to Brandenburg Gate, and that was quite amazing. It is a lovely sort of scene, isn't it? With the it was better than I thought it was going to be. With brilliant weather, like it was freezing, but there was blue sky, and the weather was like amazing. Hello, Hexie, and and it just was like really picturesque, and we really enjoyed that. And then we went to the Jewish memorial, where the big stones, and that was very thought-provoking, and I would recommend going to that just to see it, because it does make you think. As other people have said before, other visitors that go there are not as respectful or seem to really get the point of it as much as others, like climbing on it, running around it, playing hide and seek with their children and such, like having fun. And I don't know, I just found that a little bit distasteful. I don't know why. I just thought it was supposed to be a memorial to remember the people, like the Jewish people that died during the war. And that just felt a bit wrong to me. At Checkpoint Charlie.
Didn't really like that area at all.
No.
But there wasn't a lot there, to be fair. It was a road, really, with a through road. So, and lots of people standing taking photos of it, like nearly getting run over all the time. So it was a bit stressy.
It was very touristy. It felt like the place where you probably would get pickpocketed. If you were going to get pickpocketed anywhere, it'd be there, just because it was so crowded and there was loads of people hanging around, and there wasn't really any open space. Whereas most of the places we went to, like in the picturesque sort of nice places, had lots of like plazas and open spaces. So when we went to Potsdamer Platz, that was where like they've done a lot of recent building and lots of like big skyscrapers are there and stuff, and that was a big open space. That was quite nice. That was interesting just for a quick visit. Also we went to
the DDR museum, which I thought was my favourite museum probably, because we got to see how life was like in the Cold War. But that was around near Museum Island pretty much. I don't know if it's counted as on it, but Museum Island, by that point, I don't know if you could tell on the video, but we were knackered.
Yeah.
We were walking around because we didn't get like a travel pass. We got the train to Berlin and then back from Berlin, but the rest of the time we just walked everywhere. Because most places weren't too far, but overall when you do a whole day of walking, it's quite tiring.
The DDR museum is like not on Museum Island, it's like on the bank facing it, near Alexanderplatz. It's quite near Alexanderplatz, so it's sort of between the two, but it is like really close. There was a huge number of school visits when we were there. So I mean, there was French children, English children, Dutch children, Italian children, and they were like everywhere. So we visited lots of things, but we weren't sort of alone. But we still managed to have a good time, and we just sort of blocked them out in our heads and just tried to ignore them, because they were sort of everywhere doing everything, and sort of, just had to work around them really.
It wasn't that badly behaved, there was just so many of them.
Yeah, and they just were enjoying the facilities. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. They were like looking at stuff. They were actually really into it, really, weren't they?
Yeah,
they were really
good.
well behaved, but just it was crowded, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. And you weren't able to just walk around at your own sort of pace at most of the things. That's not a complaint, because museums rely on visitors, don't they? So if they didn't get the visitors, they wouldn't be there, and the schools probably contribute quite a lot towards their upkeep. So that's a good thing.
And we didn't just go to museums, so in the evening we kind of left time to eat out and then go to a few pubs. So we went to some pubs close to the hotel. And then we also went to Schoeneberg, is it called?
Yeah,
Schoeneberg?
we went to a pub in the sort of traditionally gay area, isn't
Yeah.
it, of Berlin. And the pub we went to, the bar we went to, we found was excellent. It was such a lovely, it was really lovely. Everyone
Had
was
quite
really
interesting
friendly.
decor, like quite modern. Wasn't overly expensive. The bartender was really friendly.
Gave us a shot, didn't he?
Yeah.
For free, just gave us a shot. I love that.
Yeah, so we spent a few hours in there. Obviously, in Berlin, it's a bit different to the UK, a bit more eye-opening, but really enjoyable still.
Yeah, as long as you go with a kind of non-judgmental head and think, everyone has their own choices in life, and they can do what they want as long as it doesn't impact on you. Then I think you'll have a lovely time if you go to some of these like more risque sort of places.
Yeah.
But if you go to them thinking like, and you stare and show your distaste or something. I mean, you don't. Sometimes you might see things that you wouldn't necessarily see in your hometown or where you're from, but they're not hurting anybody.
No.
So.
No. And even though it's not, we talked about places to eat in that section. We nipped out for a burrito, which was nice.
Yeah.
Bit drunk by that point, but then went back to the bar, and then got a taxi back. The taxi was quite quick to get back, and it was really cheap because we used an app, so we had a voucher, so it only cost about €2 to get there and back. So
yeah,
really good.
The next day, woke up feeling a little bit rough, worse for wear, because it was only like a few drinks, but were quite strong, the beers as well. Yeah, it was it was a really good night. I actually think that was one of the highlights, was going to the bar and having a laugh. And
I think if I went back, then I would definitely do that again.
Yeah, me too.
The weather's a bit of a consideration if you don't like the cold. We weren't sure what the weather was going to be like in April. It can vary. The week before we went, it was 16 degrees, but when we went, it tended to be around about 0 when we were going out in the morning, and rising to about 6 degrees. So if you've seen the travel vlog we did, then you'll probably see us in some really nice hats when we were walking around, because you actually needed it.
Yeah.
It was so cold. And obviously because we were not travelling on public transportation, we were walking everywhere. It was quite chilly walking around. It was nice when the sun came out, but if there was no sun, the wind and the breeze was like biting and quite cold.
I was going to say the wind. It wasn't necessarily the temperature, it was the wind.
Mm.
Because it was quite open in a lot of the plats, like the squares and plazas. It was like actually the wind would come and you'd be like, oh my God. It didn't, and it looked beautiful because the sky was blue. It was nice because it'd been raining quite a lot in the UK, hadn't it? And we'd been not having, and went there and it was just sunny, wasn't it, really, pretty much most of the time. It was like quite bright but cold. Yeah.
I'd say a lot of it's outdoors in Berlin. Obviously when you go in museums it isn't, or if you go in shopping centres you've got some chance to get away from it, but like I say, because we're walking everywhere, you could get quite cold. Equally, I suppose in the summer you'd get too hot with the concrete. And
I'd quite like to go back in the summer though, because I think like when you see all the bars and restaurants have a lot of al fresco dining, like a lot of tables and chairs outside, and it just was just too cold to sit outside, so we had to go indoors. But it would have been quite nice, just like having a drink or having something to eat and just being out in the open air. It just would have been different feel, and I think it just changes everyone into being a bit more relaxed and everything. Okay, we're going to be looking at value for money now.
Obviously it depends on who you are and how much money you have, but for us.
Yeah, and for us. We haven't really discussed this, so it'd be interesting to see what we both say.
Yeah. So in terms of the hotel and flight, that was with BA. It was like a package. So that cost £1,047 with extra legroom. £140, for extra legroom.
Also, there was the attractions. So we went to quite a few free attractions. Like the Jewish Museum was free, and quite a few other things, but a couple of them weren't. I think it was a DDR museum and also the Museum of Disgusting Food.
Yeah.
We had to pay for, and that came to £50.41 for both of us. So it isn't an awful lot for the attractions that we saw.
No. And then with the hotel, you don't pay it to BA, but when you're in Berlin, you have to pay the local tax. So when we stayed, we were there for 3 nights, 4 days. It was £29.74. but apparently that's going to go up higher percent in the future, so it might not be the same if you're thinking about going to Berlin in the future. And then obviously spending money, about £400 roughly for food, and then the transfer to the hotel as well. The transfer is very cheap. If you saw a video of Berlin, you'll see that it was quite expensive for a taxi, when you could get a travel pass if you didn't want to walk like us. But if you thought that was good value for money, that depends. So it's £1,527.55 we spent. So
I thought it was quite expensive, really, because it's like it was 4 days and 3 nights. And imagine if you went away like outside of school holidays, you could go all inclusive somewhere for that, and somewhere hot, and you'd have all your food and everything included. But would you get the same experience of the things that we saw and the things that we did? I think it was a really intense break. We felt very tired afterwards, so because we did so much. I think it was really good value for money in sense of that we haven't been away for 3 years, and I think this was a good taster to do something, and actually reignited my love of going places actually, and it's actually made me more excited about our next trip.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think our next trip, the cruise, I think that's probably better value in reality, because you get all your food included and it's quite good quality food. Not that it was bad in Berlin, but we only had a couple of meals that were proper meals, and the rest was not junk food but more quick food. So in that respect, it was quite expensive. I think it was mainly things like the coffees, because each time it was 15 euros usually. So I think they added up because we had quite a lot of coffee to keep us actually going in the morning. So I think it's probably mainly coffee, all that bill. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth doing. And you kind of, like you said, lots to see, some stuff that you can't unsee as well.
Coffee, I thought, going on what you said, coffees, I thought the coffees were much more expensive than they are in our country. To have a coffee was about €4.50, which probably is about £3.90 or something like that. It was £3.80. I don't know exactly, but I know it's not cheap to get coffee out now, but I felt, especially because so many of them are made with UHT milk. I know we keep going on about that, but it was UHT milk is so cheap compared to fresh milk.
And also, it was only really Einstein Cafe that the coffee was any good. So, and some of the breakfast, one of them we had was a pretzel, which was huge and it was really filling. But I was thinking it was quite expensive to have pretzel and coffee for breakfast, €15.
Yeah, and the twist thing was quite expensive when we went somewhere and had it in.
Yeah, that was just before Reichstag.
Yeah, it was like a pizza twist with seeds on, and it was nice, but
it was €10, I think, for the coffee and the twist, which I don't think Greg's would charge the same for. But we're not moaning. It's just that we knew that it was going to cost to eat out, but it's just something to consider if you're thinking about it. Costs in a city break. Yeah, it's definitely worth going. So would you repeat it yourself?
Definitely repeat it. I think if you're going now on a budget, you could do it cheaper, because you would just, rather than buy breakfast like we did in the bakeries, you'd go to a supermarket and get the same thing, and you could get it for a fraction of the cost. That's a good thing about Berlin, I think, is obviously our hotel was expensive. I think it was because it was a high standard of hotel. But if you want to do it cheaper, there are options, and I think it's quite an affordable city, because you don't have to eat food which is expensive. You don't have to stay at an expensive place, and I think we just made choices that made it more expensive, but medium. I don't think we went for high end, because we weren't eating out properly every night or going to mega restaurants. But I'd do it again. 100%. I'd do it again because I had such a great time.
I think I'd do the same again, but maybe stay in a different area, because obviously we've seen some of the museums now. Probably would stay near kind of the pub area that we went to, just because there was quite a lot of restaurants around there. It was quite friendly around there as well, so probably stay around there next time, possibly, if I was going to go back. But I'm not sure if I go for the same amount of time.
No, I'm not sure. There's so many places to see in the world, isn't there? And we've been somewhere. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it, but we said this, there's other places in Germany as well. You wouldn't just go. Some people just go to London and they don't go to anywhere else in the whole of the UK or England. And I think you really miss out because there's some amazing other places in the country, and I don't think Berlin represents the rest of Germany. So I think you would need to see other places to get a true sense of Germany. But I've really enjoyed it, and I would go back again, but I'll do it slightly differently.
Yeah.
So we really like watching content to do with other people's travelling to places before we go. It really helps us plan the trip, but also have an idea of things to avoid and all other sort of things, like, you know, just knowledge. But we find it really difficult, don't we, finding it?
Yeah, finding content on YouTube is really hard.
So we would really appreciate it to make it so that people could find our video if you could like it and even subscribe to us. We don't put out enormous amount of content.
No, just as a hobby, just for our memories.
It's
really.
a hobby for our memories, but it would really mean a lot to us with knowing whether we're making a good job of it or not.
So that's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from her.
Licking a bum.
Willkommen in Berlin. Jo, Berlin ist meine Queen. Yo, welcome in der ganz besonderen Stadt. Sie